folks.
Go.
Welcome to the Boer broadcast a week later here in July. How are you, Josh?
I'm good. I'm sure you're going to blame the week later on me.
Well, I was kind of glad you were on vacation last week because I don't know that I was prepared mentally. I was ready. I was already in fourth mode. So
No, I got you. I was thinking about it. I was fully prepared to take a couple hours and just stop and go back to the house and do the Boer broadcast, but it worked out. I think we just needed to gather our thoughts a little bit, but
we did, and everybody was busy last week. It's kind of nice to kind of fit in this week, and we got a great show lined up for us. Talking about things that we're all kind of worried about or all thinking about in the month of July with the New World Screwworm. With breeding season, I know that we just struggled really hard on a flush breeding and didn't get anything. I don't know that we got anything bred.
Really?
And so we'll be discussing that, and I guess we'll start maybe. We've not really talked or seen much of each other since nationals. What'd you think? How was that?
Honestly, I think you and I did so much talking at nationals. We probably didn't need to talk for a while, right?
That's right.
And that was awful fun. And I really enjoyed it. And I mean, obviously getting to judge was, major highlight anytime you're afforded that opportunity. And Randall and Jackie and I had a really good time and an awesome junior show. I probably would rank that junior show up at the top of any that I've judged or seen in the last several years, just as far as the quality and the depth. And I mean, obviously the top end's always going to be good, right? But I mean, there was goats that didn't even place that were winning shows all over the country. And it's awesome. And then when you think about how many animals we have in the open show, and that 80% of those were all in the junior deal or more. Yeah. The kids are where it's at, man. It was awesome. And then, getting to talk the open show, that was just pretty fun. That was just you and me just giving everybody a bunch of crap.
It really was. It was incredibly fun. I ran into Paige in North Dakota afterwards, and she was like, yeah, I think we need to do that again next year. And I was like, yeah, we probably do. And that might change my mind of what I want to do. If we get the opportunity to do that, especially like set us up on a table and give us a computer with entries. So we're not trying to, who is that?
I don't know. I don't know anybody either. So
I know I missed several kids, several people, and some folks I should have known. I just not from that distance. But
I didn't have any hateful Facebook messages. Nope. So I was okay with that.
No, it was everywhere I have been, it's been met with just extreme positivity. That was awesome. We got to do that more. And I'm pretty pumped about that. I think it's neat, and I think it helps. I've been on that other end, sitting here in this office and not at nationals, watching it, and it's dead air.
Right.
At least we might not be entertaining, but at least we make some noise.
Yeah, just a little background noise, like running the fan at night when you're sleeping.
Right.
No, it was good though, and I thought that open show was pretty incredible.
It was
Blake and Bailey and Terry. We all knew they were going to do a good job, and I mean, it was just so cool to be able to watch the three of them get out there and do that, as tight knit as they are, and as long as they've all known each other. It's kind of what it's all about a little bit.
It is. Good.
Yeah, there was even a couple times, heck, they even wanted to make me cry a little bit.
Absolutely. It was nice to see that. And, the animals that they had, man, oh man. I mean, we can talk, that percentage doe, you all use that percentage doe, and then she comes and wins the open show. I mean, I seen her walking through the barn, and I kind of stopped and was like, who is that? What is that?
Right.
So it was, I think, pretty easily. That was the one that was pretty stellar. You get into the percentage bucks. Logan Holland had a well of a week. with their percentage buck, winning all three shows, bred and owned, the JABGA and the ABGA. And then I guess she had reserve national champion in the open show with the percentage doe that she had that missed the junior show. She actually talking to her, she was sick, pneumonia, and they were really just trying to baby her through, and so she got over that quickly, and it didn't affect her too much. So
I even asked her. I was like, Did you show that one in the junior show? She's like, oh, no, she's sick. And I was like, good Lord, I was thinking we missed one or something.
We missed one, and sometimes that happens. And the thing that I enjoyed most about listening and sitting there with you and talking about things made me really pay attention to what the judges were saying and kind of what they were going. And I have used Terry Burke's term of selection pressure. I think every show that I've judged since then, and it's just a great way to kind of sum that up. We all just put our criteria just a little differently, and that doesn't mean it's right or wrong. And but it certainly was a fun time. It was neat to watch. Maddie and Trevor had a wonderful day with that big red buck. And of course, I wasn't there during the full blood show, but Amy Dankey's doe, is that the doe? Did that doe win Fort Worth as well? I think she's been winning a lot with that doe.
Yeah, I know Randall made the comment that he had used that doe at a show in Indiana earlier in the spring, and he said she was just absolutely incredible. And it was that was a whale of a yearling drive.
Oh yeah,
that they had. I mean that Amy's doe, and then I think there was a big red doe out there that maybe Maddie had. The doe of Tucker's that we used in the junior show, and that was probably just as stout a yearling drive as you'll ever find. And
it really
kind of lended into the. I mean, if that didn't prove to you right there of how good the quality was within that entire show, I don't. You were walking around with blindfolded, and but there was a little bit of a different feel to the Nationals. It was like I don't want to take anything away from the past Nationals, but I think this one really showcased how much all the breeders are maybe kind of starting to move in the right direction and in the same direction, and everybody's rowing the boat the right way, right? And I think a little family oriented, everybody kind of pulling together, and I mean it was a fun time, and you can tell.
And that was the vibe through the barns and through the whole deal. And I think Rodney did a really good job of really crafting an event. The way he did the kind of spectacular drive at the end of the ball, like we the more we can do that, the better our week becomes. And it was a great week, and and I love the fact that all three sets of judges were incredibly picky when it comes to feet and legs, and really preach structure, because I think you and I probably talked about this when we judged the Missouri before Nationals. We got some train wrecks sometimes when we get in feet and legs, and we've kind of got away from it, and listening to it, watching those, that selection pressure of really looking at angles. It's really changed the way that I've looked at goats too, and really have kind of second guessed goats at home and goats in the ring too that maybe I would have once gravitated to. I'm just a little more particular in the way that they need to come out of their shoulder, or out of their. I guess I've always been pretty hardcore as the way they come out of their hip, but the shoulder is one that I've probably been a little blind to. So,
and we all kind of get that way, but that's what. Part of that whole deal with the National and everybody coming together kind of comes to light, some of those issues and some of those trends, if you will, whether the trend's good or bad. I mean, sometimes they just got to be identified and come to the surface, and sometimes that's what it takes. But
Absolutely.
I think that national and kind of the momentum it built, I surely hope that it carries over into what the ABGA has got coming up this month.
Absolutely.
As far as the summit, the face to face, and what did we learn about the summit? They're pretty full, right?
Pretty
Hotel
full.
rooms are full.
There's a few hotels full. There's a few tickets left, so you can still get on. And if you want to go, they did change the schedule a little bit. You know, they kind of had it kind of dragging out through the weekend, and they've kind of really concentrated it to
just Saturday.
Saturday. And Friday is basically only the face-to-face board meeting. And then after that, on Saturday, starting at 7:30, you got coffee, and then you get into some really good educational seminars from 8 all the way on up. So,
and they got sponsors.
They do have sponsors. Farm Bright and No Fence are the sponsors of the American Boer Goat Foundation Educational Summit 2026. It'll be held in the Margaritaville Hotel in Kansas City. The block is full up. They still may have rooms at Margaritaville. You can check that out. If not, there's plenty of places to stay in Kansas City. And just a wonderful opportunity to learn. And, you know, I think I was supposed to be in early to help Olivia with a kind of a judges training seminar for judges and for just members. And they had like 125 folks sign up for this, like 78 or 80 actually show up because it got bounced around a day or two. And I missed it for some job things that were going on. But I think when you have 80 people at nationals that come out at 6, 7 o'clock at night to learn about coal faults, that shows that our industry is hungry for education. And we have to thank the Boer Goat Foundation for what they're doing, and really kind of stepping in and bringing in really kind of a really awesome professional development. When I was in extension, you know, those topics and those classes are very much like I would go to at the National 4-H Agents Conference or here there. So, you know, I think part of our association, what it allows us to be professional stockmen. And as a professional, you never stop learning, and you're always trying to figure out, you know, that next piece of the pie that you don't know yet. And here's an opportunity. So, guys, join the American Boer Goat Foundation July 24th and 25th in Kansas City at the Margaritaville Hotel.
I'm looking at texts.
Yeah, I got that too.
See, the Nail announced their judges. I actually saw that on Facebook too, but yeah. Open show is going to be Josh Stevens, and the junior show, Miss Bailey Burgum.
Yeah, going to be a really great time in Louisville at the North American, and I guess that's a Roll of Honor show. That's one that we consider a big major, and you know, I hope we take that momentum that we had at Nationals and we see that roll into Louisville in November, and Fort Worth in January, and out to Denver and throughout the rest of the spring as we look at major season back through the winter and spring, because it was a different feel. It was something I hadn't felt at a national show in a long time, so I was happy to feel that back.
I'll be interested next 2 weekends. I've got to go down to Duncan, Oklahoma, and judge the Oklahoma Boer Goat Association, one of their sanctioned shows, and then you know, Meat Goat, an Oklahoma Youth Meat Goat jackpot show that evening, and that'll be good. That'll be my first time back in the ring around here. I've been in Oregon and done some shows up there for Jolene Jolly, and that was a really good time. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that momentum carries over, particularly as we work into August and get into those state fairs and those bigger state fairs. And see how it all flows as we get into then Kansas City, Louisville,
You
Denver,
got
Fort
any
Worth.
you got any big state fairs this summer?
I cannot do much of anything in August with what we've got going on here at the Expo Center and trying to get ready for our big county
Yep.
festival and all that stuff. So I don't accept anything pretty
Yep.
much in August.
Understand that.
I just can't.
Yep.
I'd like to. That was always a cool thing to get back to the state fairs, but
You gotta love state fairs. It's prestigious and it's a great honor, and sometimes it's a big headache. But
right.
I don't have any this year, but
Yeah.
certainly are fun to sort and fun to see the different state fairs around. But
Yeah.
I did get to North Dakota. That family atmosphere followed up there too. Really a big show. I didn't know what to expect rolling into North Dakota, but I think we ended up with almost 100 head, 90 something.
Nice. Yeah.
Nice
Oh,
show.
that's good. I know they're a good, up and coming affiliate program.
They are.
So they're pretty strong and they're wanting to do it. But
Yep.
Hey, I'm looking at the clock.
It's time.
Yeah. Why don't you want to introduce our first guest?
You can go right ahead. I'm looking at my email trying to get Mr. Jake from Texas A&M.
Yeah. We're going to talk about some of the things that are going on with the New World screwworm that's come across the border, and Jake's with AgriLife Extension.
Yep.
You put a hat on too. You
just
want to be like the rest of us.
Branded. Here we go.
Yeah, I have branded and everything.
How are you, Jake?
I'm good. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Hey, we appreciate you coming out and sharing some up-to-date information on something that I think all stockmen across the country are kind of paying attention to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why don't you go ahead and just give everybody a quick rundown of where you're at, kind of what your daily life looks like on the job.
Yeah, so my name is Jake Thorne, and I am an extension sheep and goat specialist with Texas A&M. And I'm actually stationed out in West Central Texas, in San Angelo. We have a research and extension center out here, and I, kind of am involved in both sides of that, extension, education, outreach, but also I have a research program in small ruminants and focus a lot of that effort on parasites and some of the genetic technologies that are available for selecting animals for fitness and productivity, etc. But right here in San Angelo also is, kind of I want to say the epicenter, but right in the heat of the action for New World screwworm and what's going on since its arrival back in Texas in early June.
Yeah, you are right in the midst of all it was. And we were kind of talking a little bit earlier about, and that's why you knew so much about how the producers sale barn was going on
right down the street.
Just right down the street. Yeah. What are we up to 31 cases now? Is that
34
right?
as of today. Yeah, they're just added Brewster County. So 34 cases, all but one of those in Texas, mostly in kind of southwest region. The one that wasn't in Texas was actually in a dog in New Mexico. But other, between a few dog cases and then cattle, sheep, and goats, generally a mix of those three species. That's really fits the livestock that are raised in this part of the state. And where these cases are popping up, this is kind of three species country, if you may, and that's where we're seeing these cases for sure. And so, like I said, June 3rd was that first initial case in cattle, but and then everyone probably is aware of. But after that, it was kind of a quick emergence there of several, and now we're up to 34 cases total. And so what happens is once those New World screwworm is confirmed on a place, and that has to be done by USDA. And so you would, if you suspect screwworm, you would contact Texas Animal Health Commission, which is the state governing body there, and they would work with USDA to get those maggots, New World screwworm larvae, sent to a lab testing facility that either is going to be in Ames, Iowa, or actually in Kerrville, here in Kerrville, Texas. And once that confirmation happens, Texas Animal Health Commission sets up, one of the things that happens is they set up an infested zone perimeter around the premise where that was confirmed. And so that infested zone perimeter is a 12-mile radius around that site. And that is where there are going to be some added regulations as far as moving animals, especially out of that zone.
Right.
There's also additional surveillance zones set up outside of that. That's where they're going to essentially, use traps and for lack of better terms, kind of monitor if they can catch wild screwworm flies in that area. And then one of the other big things that most folks are probably aware of is over the top of confirmed cases over those premises is where sterile flies are going to be dropped to help kind of curb that wild population, the spread of that essentially. And so lots of things going on. Like I said, I'm in San Angelo. I'm actually coming to you from inside of an infested zone right here on the northern side of town. And we've had a lot of experience because of that, with what some of those regulations, those movements are.
Yeah. And I know that the USDA announced they're pushing out $105 million or 40 different projects going on, and from what I read in one article, and I'm sure there's more, and there's all kinds of producer meetings that they're doing and things like that. And
so that the money you suggest there that's actually allocated for just research for new technology to help combat New World screw. There's a larger chunk of money that is going towards development of sterile fly production facilities in the States, mainly at Moore Air Base down in South Texas. So right now, all the sterile flies actually until very recently, all the sterile flies were produced at a facility in Panama. And that Panama facility was actually ran by USDA and funded by USDA, but it happened, or it occurs down in Panama because that's where screwworm had been pushed down to essentially prior to this latest reemergence. Now, since the northern trajectory of screwworm, there's been actually a fruit fly facility in very southern Mexico is also being renovated, and that just came online to produce some sterile flies. And so that's, I think by this fall, hopes of producing another 60 to 100 million sterile flies. So the one in Panama produces 100 million sterile flies a week.
Wow.
And so the Mexico facility is going to try to basically do that as well. And then Moore Air Base down in Edinburgh, Texas, that has a goal which will come online hopefully next year. That's the timeline of 300 million flies per week. And so those sterile flies will be able to be circulated over any wild cases that are found, essentially.
Yeah. And we were kind of talking there when we started off about that, the sale barn there in San Angelo, and prices for the most part were holding fairly steady, and it's slaughter only when you go in there because of that infested zone.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, it's nuanced. So the sale barn producers livestock auction is actually not in the infested zone. They are right just outside of that. But with where those infested zones are set up, North San Angelo, Schleicher County, Edwards County, Sutton County, all you can read the list there. Those are all big time goat and sheep producing counties. And so at this point, there's a fair amount of animals that are being marketed to the sale barn, or through the sale barn, that are coming from these infested zones. And so to move out of an infested zone, right now, how the regulations work, you really have two options. You can designate those animals for slaughter only, and that would be this sale barn avenue. But what that means is that they would have to be slaughtered 72 hours after their inspection. So to move out of a zone, regardless of whether you're going to treat them or not, they need to be inspected by a certified inspector through Texas Animal Health Commission. And following that inspection, you'll be granted your paperwork that says you can move, what animals, ID numbers, etc. And again, if those aren't vaccinated, or I shouldn't say vaccinated, aren't injected with anything, then they would be designated for slaughter only. And that is, there's reasons for those regulations. And really, the main goal is to try to spread or stop the spread of New World screwworm.
Right.
But at the same time, there's those added regulations add some levels of challenge when it comes to marketing, and especially in buying animals and moving those animals then to either an in-state or out-of-state slaughter channel. There's some hoops to jump through there for sure. Now, if an animal, if you are not designating those for slaughter only, then to move out of an infested zone, and we're talking warm-blooded animals, at this point really livestock, but sheep, goats, cattle, etc. But for both sheep and goats, they would be need an injection of Dectamax. And so Dectamax is the macrocyclic lactone, and the injectable form of that provides about 21 days coverage against New World screwworm. So it is Dectamax is conditionally approved in sheep for prevention and treatment of screwworm. Not conditionally approved in goats. Not a shocker. Lots of things are not approved for goats, obviously, but
Right.
That is at this time that is still part of that movement process as regulated by Texas Animal Health Commission. Goats would be given a shot of Dectamax as well, and that's important because those come with withdrawals. And so for sheep, that's set at 35 days. For goats, that's actually 45 days. But I'll say this as I am not a veterinarian, and so anybody that really is curious about learning about that or getting caught up, I guess, on what to give and how long those withdrawals are, really needs to work with their veterinarians. They need to have that veterinary client patient relationship in place to even use Dectamax anyways. And so that would be that's one of the major recommendations. If you don't have a relationship with your vet right now or a vet right now, you need to get one, and you need to have that documented in a VCPR so that you can get these drugs available to you to move animals, whether you're in screwworm zone or not.
Right. Yeah.
So with our listeners all across the country, what are some things or what are your recommendations for, prepping your flock or your herd for this as this potentially moves or
right. Yeah, and that's a great question. And so right now, obviously, screwworm is concentrated in southwestern Texas. Now the reality is that, as we know from history and the activity of the fly, which really prefers, it's not all that dissimilar to other flies that we're familiar with. They're active. Their favorite temperature is 80 degrees, right? And so, in that 70 to 90 degree zone, they're very active. As if you kind of look at those states across the U.S. that have summer days that are consistently fall in that range, there's potential for screwworm, and so that even goes north of Texas into Oklahoma and Kansas, and to the west and east of those areas as well. So the recommendations really to prepare for that is, one of the things I want to stress is that screwworm is something that we absolutely need to take serious. I mean, it's a flesh-eating maggot that sounds like something out of a horror movie. Obviously can be lethal to animals. Something that we have to be concerned about and take serious. But at the same time, it's not something that we need to panic about either. We have the tools in the toolbox to take care of it on premise, and so that Dectamax that I suggested, I mean, though that is a drug right now that is effective for treatment of animals. We have permethrin sprays, aerosols, Catron 4. There's several others that can be sprayed, on that maggot or on those maggots to kill them. And so there's tools to do this. Obviously, the sterile flies are a big part of what's going to eradicate those animals. But if you're a breeder or a producer and you're thinking about how do I avoid screwworm best as possible, stay educated first of all on what's going on in your state and maybe happen on your neighbor's place. And then, screwworm is attracted to open wounds. And that's what makes it different than maybe some of the other flies that we're used to that are attracted to manure or decaying flesh or whatnot. Screwworm flies, which are a blowfly, the adult fly is attracted to an open wound, blood, essentially. And so if you have your animals in your herd, whether that's an accident or something along the lines of castration or dehorning or whatever, regardless of what species we're talking about, something that makes an open wound is an entry site, potential entry site for screwworm. And so watching those animals, putting eyes on animals is the best thing that you can do. Doing what is necessary to get those wounds healed up is important. Make sure they're clean, and any kind of topical insecticide that helps prevent flies in that area is going to improve that healing process and prevent screwworm. The other thing too, though, is that probably the area of the body that screwworm is most notorious for causing issues is the wet navel of newborns. And that's not a wound that was created by something that we accidentally did or we purposely did. It's a natural part of birth, right? And so especially for those of us in screwworm region, that really means that we've shifted our production schedules to make sure that lambs and kids and calves are born at times of year when screwworm activity is limited. So the adult flies, when temperatures are 50 degrees and under, the activity of that fly is really, really reduced. And sub 40 degrees, there's almost no activity at all. And so when we think about livestock being born in late October, November, December, January in our part of the world, those are cooler temps that are going to prevent that issue as much as possible. And the thing I want to stress about that is that if you're planning to have kids born in this winter, that means that bucks, billies, rams, they need to go out now. Our breeding season is starting now, essentially, so that we can have those offspring born at cool times, so that also we can still castrate or mark or ear tag or whatever our normal management procedures in that window when it's not fly season. If stuff is born the 1st of April, yeah, there might not be a lot of flies, but by the time you go to castrate it and it's May, now it is fly season, right? And so thinking about all the management procedures that are necessary, what might cause screwworm entry sites, shifting production. Obviously, there's other factors. We could go on ad nauseum about what controls the production schedule, but just thinking about screwworm, those cooler months of the year are really critical for production to prevent this.
I think that was a lot of stuff that a lot of people wanted to hear.
Yep.
Just some basic fundamental facts about, yes, this can be lived with whatsoever.
Yeah, and that's
that point.
Yeah, that's one of the things we want to stress is that take it serious. But there's several of the previous generation that has lived through screwworm, and I've really taken to a lot of the advice that they said is that yes, this is something you need to focus on, but we'll get through it. We beat it before, we'll beat it again.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that was a pretty good segue. You're talking about breeding season. That's what our next guest is going to be talking about. But Jake, that was probably spot on. That was exactly what a lot of people needed, and we really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Just real quick before I go, there's a tremendous amount of good resources online. So whether that's through USDA, Texas Animal Health Commission, even Texas A&M, have all set up screwworm resource hubs. And so search those. You can find tons of information. There's videos, there's fact sheets, there's all the latest in terms of confirmations of cases and whatnot. And so those are really the sources that you need to have favorited on your browser, and that's what you go to. I encourage you not to always believe everything that comes across Facebook and social media. Keep those sources of good information at the top of your list when you're trying to figure things out.
Very good point. Don't believe everything on the internet.
Absolutely.
I like it.
Nate, it's certainly been a pleasure. I hope at some point in time you come back and talk to our folks here on the Boer broadcast. And good luck fighting that battle and doing your research. And we appreciate all that Extension does, not only in Texas but all across the country. So thank you so much for your time, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Phyllis.
Thanks, Jake.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it's a
deal.
It's a deal.
I know that there's there's some folks that are starting to get a little antsy about it down here. Just we're a little closer, and kind of fortunate right here around the Stillwater area that our Oklahoma Secretary of Agriculture is a fellow member of this county. Her kids show livestock here at the county show. She's been a really good advocate for all the livestock producers and trying to keep people informed through the state agencies and holding producer meetings and town halls and whatnot, just trying to get some information out, like what Jake was just exactly what he was talking about, right? Yes, be cognizant of it. Be aware of it. It is serious. We've dealt with it before. We've got better ways to deal with it now. Yep. I think we'll be okay. It's got to run its course. It's got to do its thing. There's going to be some ups and downs, obviously. But I think it's going to be one of those things where he brought up, that was a really good point about the production cycle. Mm-hmm. Maybe shift it. And you don't think of it when a lot of people just think of that production cycle, they think, well, not having kids or calves or lambs right now, why would I want to do that in the summer anyway? But if you do it too late in the spring, then you move all the production practices into that period of time where you can get into trouble if you're banding or castrating with a knife or dehorning or anything, or like sheep folks, if they're docking tails, well, I mean, whatever. If you're doing that in May or June, that pushes you into a risk zone as far as timetables go. So that was I like that point. That was good.
Absolutely. And there's the other thing he was talking, find good, solid information, trusted sources. Right. For those that don't know, Caleb, our trusty executive director, he sits on a weekly call with USDA and gets updates on what's happening with screwworm. And if there's anything pertinent out, he will certainly send that out to our members. And that's just another benefit of our association, is we are connected in to that. And I think we increasingly, every time I talk to Caleb, we're connected with another group that right. just makes makes more benefits to our members.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, well, just kind of, I was going to segue into our next guest, but just kind of just touch on that topic about the groups that he's talking to. We didn't even bring up the Japanese delegation that came to the Nationals.
And that was the coolest thing ever.
Kind of an exciting deal that, who knows what's going to come out of it. Hopefully there's some partnerships that could be possibly formed and, kind of massaged over time to get some imports over there. Yep. I think they were certainly impressed from what I heard.
It was, they want American Boer goats, and they're very, very blunt. They want American Boer goats. They want our goats. They love the way our goats look, and the way our goats are built, and they really see that as an option for red meat production there in Japan. So that's really cool. And that probably come out of, I know that he spent some time at an export convention in Mexico, and those were connections that we're making. And you think that doesn't affect you, it does. It drives market, it drives prices, and the more that we can push out, it's just good for everybody involved.
I think there's it's just one more little check mark of some really good things that could potentially be coming. And and I think to really instill a lot of confidence and emphasis on the fact that there's a lot of good things, and we just got to make more goats. And in order to make more goats, we've got to be able to breed them. We got to have some better reproduction practices. And we're going to bring Dr. Jason Anton on. I think I saw over there in the private chat that Caleb's about ready to bring him on.
Hello, Jason.
Dr. Jason Anton.
Hey, gentlemen. How we doing?
Well, we can't complain. How are you?
Doing well.
We're good. Where are you at?
I'm just here in Stillwater, America.
Are you at home? You're at home.
Yeah, I'm at home. We worked at home today, so we just.
Well, hell, you should have just came over here and sat beside me. We could have done this.
I would have done it.
Yeah, you were breeding sheep today.
Yeah, breeding donors and just traditional laps. Yep.
Yeah.
We just finished up.
Well, we had a good conversation with Jake Thorne down at Texas Agri-Life Science and the Extension Department, just talking about some screwworm stuff and just some basic info. And I know we're a little bit behind on getting ready for breeding season because a lot of folks in our world have already started. There was a lot of flushing that was done probably last week, but and there's a lot of AIs already scheduled. That's why we had a lot of folks that we were going to try and get on. We knew that they were already going to be busy, and luckily you were going to get done early enough that we could get you on, right? I know Jason Brashear, just to tell you a little bit, I helped Jason Anton just a little bit, and I know how fast he goes, so I knew he'd be done by the time we got ready to do this deal.
Good deal.
Give us a little bit of your background, Doc, and tell everybody where you came from, what you're doing now, and then some of the high points there.
Yeah, sure. So when I graduated vet school from Oklahoma State in 2015, I went and spent 2 years in Australia, worked for a large reproductive firm, but we also had a big export arm. That's what you guys were talking about when I was listening about, Boer goats in Japan, different things like that. So I did a lot of that work while I was over there. But we were pretty much a repro focused practice. Did multiple species, horses, cattle, and small ruminants, sheep and goats. Did quite a bit of goat work and export embryos and on the dairy and the meat goat side as well. And after my 2-year stint in Australia, moved back to Oklahoma, Eastern Oklahoma, established Overflow Genetics kind of on a mobile platform. Started doing some assisted repro and small ruminants in the cattle. And then moved to Stillwater in 2020. Started to build slowly but surely a bit of a haul-in facility or haul-in component of the business. And that's been the focus. So I joined faculty at Oklahoma State College of Veterinary Medicine in February of this year. On kind of a 9-month appointment, so I can still do the breeding season for small ruminants, but also I enjoy teaching. I think more veterinary students need to have a better appreciation for small ruminants and the medicine that goes into it, and not just the mentality that they're just a sheep or they're just a goat, because as we all know, it's a livelihood for many people, but they're very, very expensive, or they're a big investment rather. So I started that new venture not long ago, but from July till October, I'm off to be able to do, primarily club lamb work. I still have a handful of cattle clients rather that I do throughout the year, but that's kind of where I am today, Josh. So
that's fantastic. So
yeah, go ahead, Jason.
So part of the reason we wanted to just kind of have a talk about reproduction and it's maybe not even embryology or artificial side of things, but just like it's time. And as Jake was talking, the season, now's the time to get ewes bred. Now's the time to get does bred and to kind of hit if you're in that screwworm zone. But also that's what we want our kids now, born in December and March, for to hit the shows if we're looking on the show side. But I like my Decembers for the commercial herd we use, because they're big enough to ship at Easter and really cash in on that market. So what are some tips or tricks in terms of just getting animals ready and prepared for that breeding season?
Yeah, that's a great question. I get asked all the time, and when I talk to current clients and new clients alike, it's always going back to basics, right? And when I say basics, it's basic animal husbandry. And what do we need to think about as far as how to get these animals to reproduce successfully, whether they're in a live cover setting, whether you're AIing or whatever it may be. Those tenets or those foundations for success are all the same, right? And one of the biggest thing is I would say on your females or your bucks alike is animal comfort, is making sure that, if they're out in a pasture setting, that they've got access to shade, that they've got access to clean water, that they've got access to a high quality mineral, good forage options, for our browsers and stuff like that. So, it's just keeping things simple. I find that sometimes we try to overcomplicate things. If we look at the supplement market, and there's a million different supplements that promise you all these different things, right? Everybody shaking their heads and smiling because we know it, right? So, you give this, and your does will have triplets every time, and they'll milk like a Holstein, and blah blah blah, or you'll get 20 embryos, and really at the end of the day, I think we tend to overcomplicate things, both as producers and sometimes from the breeder side, or even with veterinarians and what input they might have. And at the end of the day, it's just keeping those animals in a moderate body condition. Okay, increasing their plenty of nutrition prior to breeding. So that's the benefit that we have in our small ruminants, is the nutritional flushing, and the fact that it has a direct correlation to a higher ovulation rate. So if we have animals that are already too conditioned, we're not going to get that benefit of nutritional flushing. If we have animals that are too under conditioned, then it's going to be the same, right? So we want something that's going into breeding season on a positive plane of nutrition, positive energy balance, something that's being, maintained in a conducive environment for animal comfort and overall well-being, right? If you're keeping them in a barn, making sure they've got fans, making sure you've got some air circulation, you've got some ectoparasite control, the fly control, which, to piggyback on Jake, that's also going to mitigate a bit of your risk on the screwworm deal. Everybody's really scared about that, right? But I think just, again, keeping it basic. We know what we like to survive on. We don't want to drink or drink really dirty water, or we wouldn't. At the same time, our livestock, we need to be mindful of that as well, and we need to provide a pretty balanced ration, something that's not going to have too much protein, that's going to have a ammonia byproduct that's going to affect fertility as well, and just maintaining those animals the way the good Lord intended. Not too skinny, not too fat, and something that's increasing and their plenty of nutrition coming up to breeding season.
Let me think of how I need to word this a little bit. So you hit on the supplement deal a little bit, right? So we've all heard the stories about just blown up flushes, nothing. Just big offers. Whether it was the semen, whether they were didn't ovulate or anything like that. With all those different supplements out there, we can overcomplicate it. We can give them too much of all the different stuff, where they start to counteract one another, where they're not wanting to, they're binding up certain nutrients one way or the other, and then you get too far. Go in maybe to just a basic nutrient flushing type scenario, where I think we got plenty of people out here that probably heard you say that and didn't really understand what you meant.
Sure.
Because there's some of them that when they hear that, they don't know we're just talking about simply increasing a little bit of feed for just a short period of time, right? So maybe just hit the basics of that real quick.
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate you. Yeah, you bring that to light, Josh. So as far as nutritional flushing is concerned, typically you want to start about really 3 to 4 weeks prior to breeding these animals. You want to start increasing the nutrient content of their diet. So basically, if you're feeding grain, you want to start kind of bumping their diet. And what I have my clients do is about, week 1, quarter pound ahead that we're bumping. So if they're on 1.5 pounds, we're going to, and they're in moderate body condition, and we want to kind of increase that body condition or elicit that nutritional flushing benefit, to Josh's point. It's a gradual increase of nutrients, right? So we're going to increase their feed by 1/4 pound first week, 1/2 pound, 3/4 pound, and up to a month out, we've almost, if they're at a 1 pound ration per day, that we've doubled it by the end of that month. But we've gradually allowed that to occur and them to acclimatize that change in ration. But at the same time, and that's, again, one of the benefits of our small ruminants, is we find that increasing that plenty of nutrition will actually have a positive effect or benefit on the ovulation or the event by which they're going to drop eggs that then can be subsequently fertilized. So maybe an animal that you didn't nutritionally flush would have 1 to 2 kids, but once you nutritionally flush them, then they have 2 to 3. So it's not going to be something that we're going to super stimulate these things where they're going to have quintuplets that nobody wants, right? So it's nothing to that extreme, but physiologically speaking, it tells their body and it primes things and says, "Hey, I'm getting really good groceries right now. We're getting ready to come into our breeding scenario or situation. We can actually probably afford to feed 1 more kid, or maybe 2 more kids when it comes down to it, or maybe just conceive per period, right?" And so that's essentially what the body kind of tells itself, that that's an optimal time to continue to propagate, right? So it's time that, let's not just put 2 kids on the ground, let's put 3, because mama's got the groceries to be able to feed 3 kids versus 2, to Josh's point. Yes.
Are we going to do that to our bucks too?
You can. We don't necessarily get the benefit as far as a nutritional flushing on semen quality. I think on the bucks, I think it's still advantageous that they're on a positive plane of nutrition. I think it's better that animal, again, is when I say positive plane of nutrition, I need to take a step back and say that the benefits of increasing the grain feeding or whatever supplementation is advantageous to their production and reproduction, right? So when I say positive plane of nutrition, their body is using those added nutrients for positive effect or positive benefit, rather, versus something that's overconditioned, that you're feeding them more and they're just laying down more adipose tissue or more fat, right? So that's the thing we know. And to Josh's point again on bucks, if you get them too fat, they're going to put a lot of that fat into the scrotum. The scrotum's going to affect the thermoregulation, or the ability for those testicles to do what they're supposed to do, and that's produce good quality sperm cells. We're wanting to breed these animals in the dead of summer or the hottest part of the year, right? And so we don't need to be laying more fat tissue down around their baby makers, so to speak, right? So I think it is important that we focus on the nutrition, but I find that the micro and the macro minerals for our bucks is probably paramount when it comes to just overall nutrition. We don't get the nutritional flushing, so to speak, as far as the effect on reproduction, but I think having a nice quality chelated mineral in front of them, spend a little bit more money on the mineral and less on the super sperm supplements out there would go a lot. You're laughing, but I had to think about a name. I thought about numerous supplement names, Josh, that I could not say. I had to think
I can imagine. I can imagine the one shot does it all type deal.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought, and you just kind of triggered when you were talking about those ones on the positive plane in nutrition. And you said earlier about, we don't want them too fat. We don't want them too thin, because if we have them too thin, then we're like, oh, you know what? We got to start feeding these things. We pull them out of pasture. It's been wet in Oklahoma. There's plenty of forage. They're going to get down to the bottom below that worm level here pretty soon in August. They're going to be thin. We're going to pull them off, and we're just going to put them on a bunch of alfalfa and start feeding them grain all of a sudden and just absolutely destroy their insides. That's not going to do you any good.
Yep.
So that steady increase is what I think a lot of people need to realize, that it's just not pouring a bunch of feed at them at once.
Yeah.
Let's just gradually build these things up to get to that certain point. And then, because there's a lot of folks that, they're breeding now. There's going to be a lot of breeding done in August also, but then September, October, a lot of these the pedigreed show folks will be setting up for flushes there in October. And it kind of fools a lot of them, I think, sometimes, because we start to cool off, everything starts to do good, and they just want to hammer those things with too much feed too quick, and they run into a lot of problems when they get into the first part of October.
So as we talk a lot of our folks are flushing show does that are already way too fat. How do you got something now that's doing really good as a yearling, you need to market offspring off of them. Is there any suggestions, because you can't pull that fat off that quick, to be able to increase their productivity, kind of going to that flush table?
Not necessarily. I mean, that's the thing, is you don't want to start starving these things down and create another stress, right? Essentially, but you don't want to increase their feed either. So you want to kind of maintain where you're at. And then when you're done, trying to get production out of them, or get embryos, or lap AI them, or try to get them pregnant in a natural setting, I think that, hopefully, if they have their own baby or have the option, that time of lactation is going to pull a lot of that fat off, right? But honestly, in this game, or this day and age, and especially if people using assisted repro, most of the animals we see are going to be those that are more or less over conditioned. And it's because they're our best animals and they're our biggest financial investment, right? So we're going to take the best care of our donors or our lap AIs and stuff like that. So it makes complete sense. I mean, it would be silly for someone to go spend big money on a donor and starve them down to where they're barely surviving out on pasture, or wormy as heck, or So I mean, if you're comparing the two, I think it's better to overlove them than not love them at all, right?
Oh,
but at the same time, we do know that added condition doesn't do us any favors when it comes to getting pregnant, whether, again, in any of the settings that we're talking about, or even embryo production. So my biggest thing is just, if they have a chance to raise one, kind of let that condition go off and kind of maintain where you're at from there and build it up. So, and I think everything we're talking about, and Josh touched about it, but 60 days, people need to keep in mind, it takes about 60 days to initiate a new management change or a change in animal husbandry practice before we see the positive benefit. Okay, so it takes time. And if we're talking about even the bucks, and to Josh's point about people breeding now or breeding in October, those sperm cells that we see today were made in the testicles more than 49 days ago. So 49 days in the testicles, and then they go through a point where they get their motility and epididymis before they're ejaculated. So it's almost 60 days total. But so again, 60 days is what you have when you're looking at instituting change or preparing for your later breeds. So when we're talking about the fact that we're in the second week in July, it's September and October. I mean, what we see now is what we're gonna see down the track there when it comes to our males and our females. Our females tend to weather the storm a little bit better, and I think those eggs or those oocytes tend to be a bit more robust than the sperm cells. But I do see, and every year when I look at it, I'll see sperm quality drop off in July, and flush in number of embryos created drop off in August. So they tend to have a little bit of a lag behind. And that should give people an idea too, when they're breeding, that I would anticipate the fact that heat's going to catch up on those females in this part of the country, or in Oklahoma, or, in August. So
I think that's a pretty good kind of tie in to what Jake was talking about earlier, because if you don't start even if you're breeding in October, okay, and you don't start taking care of them now, those bucks are already affected. That semen's already going to be affected for those October flushes and those October breedings in August. And so if you don't worry about your bucks until September, you're probably already behind the 8 ball. That's going to push your breeding into November. That's going to make your kids later. That's going to put your production practices as far as dehorning and castration at a peak time for fly season. And that was what you were trying to get away from when we're talking about that screwworm deal and kind of mitigating some of the, the components to possible exposure to it. And so I think it's a lot of information that what you just talked about is things that people have said for a long time, but I don't know if they put it in such a way as what you just did. And I certainly appreciate the fact that you hammer down and you put it into detail. Don't overdo it one way or the other, right? We're just kind of gradually building these things up, and we don't need to push a bunch of supplements. Basic minerals, folks. Just get some good stuff and from quality mineral. Don't buy the cheap stuff. You don't have to buy the most expensive stuff. Just good all around mineral. Keep it in front of them. Keep them comfortable, right? We all just want to be comfy.
Yep. Absolutely.
Jason, do you got anything else?
Just on that kind of comfortability deal, I think it also goes into just hoof care too. We've seen we had a terrible run of hoof rot a few years ago and had the hardest time getting anything to settle. Females would not settle, and regardless if they were up on their feet at the time of breeding, and now that we've kind of got that under control, we've lost that. But I think it goes back to your point of keeping them comfortable. If they're not feeling their best, they're not going to tell their body to keep that embryo, or when it hits the wall and wants to stick, they're just going to flush that right on out.
Yeah, the stress response and cortisol being the stress hormone has a negative feedback on all things reproduction, right? So if they're hurting, if they got a sore foot, if they got a sore eye, if they got a little bit of pneumonia going on, it is going to have a direct negative impact on fertility or reproduction.
We'll probably see some of that, I'm sure, with as wet as it is around. And, some part, I just came from Colorado. It's so dry out there that they're actually having some foot rot problems out there because it is so dry.
Wow. Yeah.
It's just crazy. But, well, hey, we are kind of at the end of our time. We're at the end of our hour. Doc, appreciate it.
Thanks, sir.
You for coming on. We're, if you're willing, we'll probably have you back.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. I enjoyed the chat.
Thanks,
good
sir.
to see you. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you guys. Have a good night.
See ya.
Bye.
Good stuff right there. Pretty,
been great.
Simple, basic. Just he's always pretty good about that. Just kind of do the basics, right? Start there.
Well, and I think all of us like to get it so overcomplicated because we've got so many things pushed at us. It's you scroll Facebook and you see 75 different ads for different things that do different, and you're just like, man, I've got to do this. And sometimes you just got to get back to the basics of animal husbandry, of how we need to raise these things, and then start from there and find what works for you. And years ago we ran a commercial herd and we were big nutritional flushers. We raised forage base goats for a long time, and we would start a month out, slowly increasing that feed. And it was, triplets were pretty common, and I hated it, but triplets were pretty common, and we always had big healthy kids. And now we don't necessarily do that because we keep everything too fat and
right.
tied to the feed trough, and our productivity is a whole lot less, but it makes a difference if you can it just makes them feel all good inside to be like, yes, bring on the babies.
Yeah. Well, and I think maybe a little bit of that is we've gotten away from some of that nutritional flushing because there's not very many folks out there that have just a really large brood doe herd
Nope.
that are having a bunch of natural babies.
Nope.
You're relying a lot on the ET programs, and putting recips into production to raise all those and to have all those embryo kids, and that's perfectly fine. I do think that it's kind of some of the conversations that you and I had when you were down here in April for that Cowboy Classic. Kind of maybe need to get some of those breeders back. Like a perfect example, George Betty White, down there, Blue Top, right?
Yep.
Didn't do a lot of AI interflushing, but had a whale of a doe herd.
They did.
Big numbers. Bred everything natural.
Yep.
Some breeders that'll do some more of that. I think that could be a big benefit to the breed, to the association. Maybe some research parts of what the foundation's wanting to do.
Yep.
Some of those types of things. And so, the nutritional planing, building up, and the flush and the nutritional flushing and all that. I guess keeping them on a plane, kind of put those two things together there. You can still do that with your donors, but I mean, yeah, if we've got too much weight on them already, it's kind of hard.
It's kind of hard. You can do that with your recips though, and I think it does make them much stickier.
It does work on the recips, that's for sure. But the whole industry as a whole, and maybe the condition of the industry as a whole, and when I say condition, I mean actual condition of the industry and how fat these goats are. That might be a whole podcast topic.
It could be
sometime this fall.
Yeah, it could be. We certainly like them. We like them big. We like them juicy, and that's but like Jason said, it was their biggest investment. They're the ones we want to make sure we keep them at their optimum level. We don't want them to drop down, and because at that point in time we all know when an animal starts going downhill, sometimes it's hard to pull them back, and
it's too late at that point. Once you start seeing them going downhill, it's already too late.
It's too late. You may pull them back, but you probably won't. And so I understand it, but we gotta try to figure out that balance and a more healthy balance. And I look at that at home and our goats too. It's just like, man, how do we get this way? And we
right. So, well, I think we've had a lot of good info tonight, and I would encourage everybody look some stuff up on the USDA website about the New World screw worm. Why is that so dang hard to say?
It's so hard to say.
I know. Texas Agri-Life Science, the Texas Extension down there, Jake Thorne. Some really good stuff from him. Dr. Jason Anton, Overflow Genetics. If you got any questions about nutritional flushing or anything like that, I know he's more than willing to take a call, return a text, and kind of try and help you out in certain instances like that. Talk to your own vet. Talk to all the other repro guys that are around the country. Get on a decent program. Don't try to hit them all at once. Shoot for the middle, right?
Shoot for the middle.
What, man, it's been a busy summer already. It's so just weird to think that it's already the second week of July.
It does. Absolutely.
And it's flown by. And we're actually wet and green, so it doesn't really look like July around here. I've got a lot going on with our facility. We talked a little bit. I'm going to go judge end of the month, a couple weeks. What do you got coming up?
I've got Richard Dicey coming up here up in the Northeast, coming up on the 18th. So I'll be in Massachusetts, and then
Nice.
some things going on here at work, and then I've got I guess West Virginia and then North Carolina in as we get into August. But yeah, it's been busy, and I don't know where the summers went.
I know.
It's
been crazy. It's been crazy. Well, I think we probably wrap that up and just say, encourage everybody. One thing we didn't talk about, go look at the agendas for the face-to-face.
Yep.
Go look at the agenda for the member meeting. That's going to be in 2 weeks also up Kansas City. Encourage everybody to look at those agendas. If you have questions, reach out to your directors. Look at the member meeting agenda as well, and do the same.
Absolutely.
And so we're going to have, this will be the first board meeting with our newly elected directors.
Yep.
We're going to pick a new
president
set of officers, right? All new set of officers. Is that? Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to have some new ones in there, some new leadership up in the top. And yeah, it's exciting stuff. Good
exciting times. And if you got any questions or any thoughts for topics for us as we look at August, and it's coming at us maybe a little quicker this time than it has in the past. Our next 3
weeks, right?
Just 3 weeks. So our next podcast will be on August the 6th. So if you got any thoughts or questions or things that we can get or topics that we can hit, we certainly would love to have those. Going to talk to Caleb about getting some sort of link up on the page, on the ABGA page, that can just be a form to fill out. If you've got a topic idea, and we can pull those out. Or if you got a question, we can, as we start to kind of nail down what the board broadcast looks like, we're probably looking at a little bit of an intro and a guest or two, and some other segments. We'll jump into some history things from time to time. But
I would imagine the next month probably have one of the new officers on.
Yep.
After that face-to-face, kind of talk about what came out of that, how the summit was.
Yep.
Get into the maybe touch on some of the stuff for the fall sale season. Yep. And get into some good things about the shows and the directions, and kind of some of they're going to be wanting to do committees. There's all kinds of stuff we're going to be able to talk about.
Absolutely. Well, Josh, it has been it's been a pleasure. We've had a wonderful board broadcast here for July, and I think it's about time for us to say goodbye.
Folks, have a good evening. Have a good weekend. We will see you next month.
See you guys.